I wanna sail all over the world and start living free. I know that there's somebody who is waiting for me. I'll build a boat steady and true as soon as it's done. I'm gonna sail the loveliest dream of my dear someone. I'm gonna sail the loveliest dream of my dear someone. Hey friends, how are you? It's Lisa from Life with Five coming to you from the garden. I'm going to come to you from the garden for as long as it's beautiful enough to be out here, and I think we have a couple of months of that left at least. I'm wearing my Ornata blouse. I'm so happy to be finished with it. It is, I just think, such a sweet pattern. I'm going to talk more about that. I love these colors. This is from Wing and a Prayer Farm. This is the Vermont flock yarn. It's kind of a rustic yarn. Really interesting to knit a fine pattern with a rustic yarn. Really kind of cool contrast, I think. And this is a podcast where we lean into the creative side of life to bring us more peace of mind, to bring us greater meaning in our lives. We talk about knitting, mostly share knitting and all kinds of patterns, and sometimes we talk about technique, but mostly we just talk about knitting and what that means to us and how that helps us to let go of the negativity, the negative thoughts that can grip us on a regular basis, and that when we sit down to our knitting, we can actually just let go of those negative thoughts and kind of fall into the rhythm of the knitting, and that over time this kind of translates throughout our lives in a positive way by bringing us more of what we love and by calming the mind on a regular basis, much like a mindfulness practice would do. So I'm going to be quick today. I'm just going to talk about what it was like to do the Ornata. This was it was a pretty quick knit, I will say this. And one thing that I love about the Ornata is the neckline. And this kind of, I feel like, is an important piece of knitting, is the neckline. And this is a very, like, a kind of an interesting neckline where you have this picot hem, and it's got gathers at the top, and it's sort of, I really like a loose neckline. I like something very loose around my neck, and I was really happy to learn this technique from the pattern of how to kind of gather something, make it really wide, and then gather it so that it's exactly the kind of neckline you want. I worked really hard to get gauge, and it meant switching needles. I really did a lot of switching. I didn't do my old way of just like getting started, and then if it didn't look right, switching the needles. I had to do a couple of swatches and until I really got the gauge, because I wanted this to fit well, because it's kind of oversized and it's a little cropped. If you can't, if you can see that. Let me stand a second so you can see it's a little cropped. And I planned to wear it with dresses and skirts and high-waisted jeans, but I didn't want it to be huge. I didn't want it to be too small. And the sleeves, I added a picot hem to the edge of the sleeve. I didn't do the sleeve. The pattern calls for a full balloon sleeve. I just really liked the way it looked as I sort of came to this length, and I was like, you know what, I'm kind of playing a little bit of yarn chicken, and I might as well just stop here, and I'm going to put the picot on the edge, and I really am happy with it. I feel like it's a perfect fall sweater. I'll probably wear this to Rhinebeck. Is anyone going to Rhinebeck? Anyone planning on going this year? I hope we have really beautiful weather. I think it'll be a perfect Rhinebeck sweater because often can be a little warm, and I'm sitting out here today and it's about like 70 degrees out here, and it feels actually quite comfortable wearing this sweater. It's this Vermont flock is a combination of wool and mohair, so it is surprisingly I'm surprised I'm not warmer, but I feel very comfortable, although I'm not really moving around too much. So I'm going to attach, one of the things I really worked on with this was carrying floats. This was like, whenever I do a sweater, I try to learn, like, well, what did I learn? What was the big lesson of this sweater? And the big lesson of this sweater is how to carry floats. And it's really important for me. I tend to be a loose knitter, although when I start to do color work and I carry my floats, I'm tighter with my carrying of floats. And this can create a puckered look in the sweater, which is not great. You know, most of us don't want that. So what I found out is, and I'm going to share a little video in here how exactly I did that. It's just you really just, when you're carrying, you kind of just do a gentle tug on the back of it so that it's not super tight and that you're not creating these like little folds or unintentional puckers in the sleeve. And I can see which sleeve I worked more loosely than the other, but I'm still very happy with everything and how it all turned out. So that was the main thing. And then it was using this beautiful yarn, which is hand dyed, and I just think is a gorgeous color, and it just has a beautiful drape. And I think that this sweater would look great in a really drapey fabric, or a really drapey yarn, something like a bamboo or even an Angora. My neighbor is doing some chainsawing, so I may have to stop. So really enjoyed this knitting, this sweater. Highly recommend it as a pattern. Pretty easy, pretty easy, I have to say. The color, it was a very well-written pattern. So really happy with it, and would recommend it. And I am considering doing it again in some other colors with a full balloon sleeve on it, because I think that actually is quite beautiful as well. So that's my story of the Ornata sweater, the Ornata blouse. She's an amazing Ukrainian pattern designer, and I'm going to stop right here, and we're going to pick up in a second when we are finished with the chainsawing. Oh, he stopped. Okay. So I'm really happy with it. I thought it was great, fun, quick, relatively quick. I think I finished it in like 2 weeks. So, and other than that, just getting ready for the school year, getting ready to start teaching. This year I have a lot of new responsibilities, so I'm kind of really busy with work. My daughter's heading to Scotland in another 2 weeks. Sophie, my daughter, is heading to Scotland, and she's knitting a beautiful sweater, which I'm going to post pictures of here. I'm telling her that she has to videotape herself knitting this sweater. It's gorgeous. It's a real Elizabeth Zimmerman pattern where it's a bottom up, and she just took some yarn and she figured out her gauge, and she figured out what she wanted to be the width of her sweater, cast on the correct number of stitches, put on, did some ribbing on the bottom, and is knitting up, and she's going to make it a boat neck, which I'm really interested in seeing how that turns out, because I would like to have a boat neck sweater. I love, as I said, I like the open neckline. I like boat necks. I'm not a huge fan of crew necks, which is always what comes when knitting in the round. So, knitting yoke sweaters. So I'm kind of interested in experimenting. I got this beautiful book called Magical Embroidery. I picked it up when I was at the yarn day over at Wing and a Prayer Farm, from Amanda Soul from Taproot, and it's this beautiful book with all kinds of embroidery, with very specific instructions for embroidery. And I'm looking forward to it. And I was thinking about doing an embroidery here down the center, which I may or may not do. But if I do a simple boat neck sweater, I think it would be really pretty to do some embroidery at the neckline. And so I'm going to be planning for that, and I'll keep you posted on how that goes. I have been doing lots of lots of my spiritual practice, lots of chanting, meditation, just trying to really keep my my quiet mind that's going on right now, that naturally happens here in the summer. The garden is going really, really well. Our tomatoes are finally ripening. We've had tons of tomatoes, but they just were green. But they're really just so many red tomatoes right now. And our lettuce is like almost a foot tall. Oh, no, more than a foot tall, like 2 feet tall. And we have lots of zucchini, and I'm sitting right next to, this is the chicken coop. We're going to be getting some chickens in the spring. And, I had a really amazing conversation with somebody who is part of the satsang that is my practice, who lives in India, or actually he lives in England. He's of Indian descent, but he was raised in England, and he is doing amazing humanitarian work around the country, around London, around New England. I live in New England, which is kind of interesting because I would like to do some of his work here, but he's doing this work in England and the United Kingdom. He's feeding the hungry. He's feeding the homeless in New York. He is providing food for people who need it all over the globe, and also during COVID, he did a lot of medical aid for the people who were working as essential workers. So he's a really remarkable person, and it was just so uplifting to talk to him and just hear what he's doing, and to share a little bit about our practice and what that means to us. And it inspired me to do more for people, to find ways to be of service to others. I think it's so easy to fall into what life tells us that we need to do, which is to take care of ourselves, get what we want, get more of what we want, get more things, get more stuff. And I think it's really easy to feel overwhelmed and feel like we don't have space to give to others or time to give to others, but I'm going to make that a commitment. I really want to commit to doing more for others, because I think that's an important way that we can also help ourselves, right? By helping others, we stop thinking about ourselves so much and stop thinking about our own thoughts and negative thoughts, or otherwise, whatever we think is important. By coming out of ourselves and helping others, we become happier. So on that note, I'm going to leave you, and I wish you the happiest of Sundays. I wish you happy knitting, and please remember to subscribe if you're still with me right now. I would love to have you be part of our community. Please subscribe, please comment, share with me what you're knitting, share with me how you keep your quiet mind that you may develop over the summer. Have an amazing day. Namaste.
Okay, so when you are working longer floats, what I have been doing is I carry it over, right? Carry it to so that you have the float captured. But what I've been doing in the past is I've just been tugging on this to make this disappear so that it's not visible, right? You tighten that up. But what that does is it tightens it up in the back, and it can create a gather or a bumpiness in the fabric. So before you move forward, you might just want to tug it just a bit and then stretch it so that it's nice and loose behind, and then you just continue along the way. Then we have